What happens when America's sweetheart of home renovation sits down for a feel-good TV interview, only to find herself in the hottest seat of her career? The cameras were rolling, the studio was packed, and what began as a cheerful promotional stop suddenly spiraled into one of the most talked-about morning show moments of the year. This is the story of how a simple interview went completely off the rails, leaving audiences stunned and one very famous guest walking off set. Make sure to subscribe and let us know your thoughts in the comments, because you won't believe how this unfolded. Joanna Gaines stepped onto the Today Show stage that morning with her signature radiant smile. She wore a flowing cream blouse and dark jeans. Effortless, elegant, unmistakably Joanna. The crowd erupted in applause, thrilled to see the Magnolia Network star in person. Jenna Bush Hager greeted her warmly, pulling her in for a hug. It looked like this was going to be another easy, heartwarming segment about family, design, and Joanna's brand new book. "Joanna, we're so excited you're here," Jenna began as the audience settled. "Your new book is stunning. Honestly, flipping through the pages makes me want to redesign my entire house." Joanna laughed, that laugh, the one viewers had adored for years. "That's exactly what we were hoping for. Chip always jokes. I'm in the business of making people dissatisfied with perfectly good homes." The audience chuckled. Everything seemed light, easy, comfortable. Then the question shifted. Jenna's co-host leaned in. "Speaking of Chip, how do you two make it work? Most couples can't survive one remodel without a blow-up, let alone building an empire together." Joanna slipped into her polished answer, the one she'd given countless times before. "We balance each other. I'm detail-oriented, he's big picture. I like to slow down, he likes to jump in. It works because we trust each other completely." "Trust?" Jenna nodded. "That must be important, not just for your marriage, but for everyone who depends on Magnolia, your staff, your business partners, your contractors." Something flickered across Joanna's face. A micro-expression. Barely a second, but the camera caught it. "Absolutely," she said. "Trust is everything." Jenna glanced at her notes. "Well, speaking of business decisions, there's been some online discussion about Magnolia's labor practices. Reports about conditions at construction sites, wage disputes. Could you address those concerns?" The room changed. The air seemed to tighten. Joanna's smile didn't disappear, but her shoulders stiffened ever so slightly. "I'm not sure what specific concerns you're referring to," she said carefully. "We're always working to improve, and we listen to our community." Jenna's co-host gave a small nod, encouraging her to push. "Some former employees have raised questions about overtime pay, safety protocols. These aren't rumors. These are documented complaints. Since your brand is built on values, don't you think it's worth addressing?" Now Joanna wasn't smiling at all. "I think you're making assumptions about things you don't fully understand. We employ hundreds of people. We work with dozens of subcontractors, and we take those responsibilities very seriously." "Of course," Jenna replied smoothly. "But responsibility also means being willing to talk about problems openly, doesn't it?" Joanna's jaw tightened. "Documented by whom? Disgruntled former employees? Competitors trying to damage our name? If you're going to throw accusations, your viewers deserve to know the source." The tension was electric. The studio was silent. Even the crew seemed frozen, waiting. Her co-host finally broke in, voice calm but strained. "Joanna, no one is accusing. We're giving you the chance to respond, to set the record straight, if there's been a misunderstanding." Joanna froze at Jenna's words. The question hung in the air like a challenge, raw and unflinching. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was low but edged with steel. Then that's something we address directly, privately, with integrity, not on live television, in front of an audience, while I'm here to talk about a book meant to inspire families. This isn't accountability, Jenna. It's spectacle. The audience shifted uneasily, the tension almost unbearable. Some people exchanged glances, others held their breath. Jenna didn't flinch. Or maybe, she countered. This is what accountability looks like when people feel their voices aren't being heard. Joanna's jaw tightened. She took another step back, clearly preparing her exit. No, what this looks like is betrayal. I agreed to come here because I thought this was a space of respect. Instead, I'm standing here defending myself against headlines and half-truths. That's not journalism. That's theater. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Phones were raised higher now. Everyone knew this moment would go viral before the show even ended. Jenna's co-host tried one last time, voice desperate. Joanna, please. If you walk off now, that's the story. Stay. Give your side. Don't let this define the narrative. Joanna looked at him, eyes blazing. The story will define itself, because the truth always does. And the truth is, I won't be used for ratings. With that, she pulled off her microphone, placed it firmly on the chair, and turned toward the exit. Gasps echoed through the studio as she strode off set, her cream blouse trailing behind her like a banner of defiance. The cameras caught every step. On stage, Jenna sat frozen for a beat, then composed herself, her expression unreadable. We'll be right back, she said tightly, as the control room hastily cut to commercial. But in the studio, the audience remained motionless, the weight of what they'd just witnessed pressing down on them. This wasn't the uplifting morning segment they'd come for. It was something far rarer, live television history. I'm asking you to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, not everything under Magnolia's roof is as perfect as the glossy pages of your book. Jenna pressed, her voice steady but her eyes locked on Joanna's. A flicker of fire lit Joanna's expression. Perfect? Do you honestly think anything we've built came from perfection? It came from struggle, from sacrifice, from sleepless nights wondering if we could make payroll, from putting everything we had on the line when nobody believed in us. And now you sit here, she pointed toward the desk, and reduce all of that to sound bites and suspicion. The audience murmured again, some shifting in their seats as the weight of her words cut through the room. Joanna, Jenna said carefully, this isn't about reducing your legacy. It's about recognizing that legacies aren't built only on successes, but on how leaders respond when things go wrong. The question is, are you willing to face those moments head on, or will you walk away from them? Joanna's eyes narrowed. For the first time, she didn't just look angry. She looked hurt. Don't twist this into some morality tale about courage. Courage is showing up every day to do the work. Courage is risking everything to build something real. Courage is protecting your people, not performing for ratings. Her voice rose now, trembling with conviction. What you've done here isn't courageous. It's calculated. It's entertainment, dressed up as accountability. Jenna opened her mouth to respond, but Joanna didn't give her the chance. She reached down, unclipped her microphone, and set it on the table with deliberate precision. This conversation is finished, she said flatly. The studio went still. Every eye was locked on her as she pushed back from her chair and stood, tall. You wanted a headline? Joanna's voice carried across the silent set. Here it is. Joanna Gaines refuses to be ambushed. With that, she turned on her heel and walked off stage. Gasps erupted from the audience, some even applauding in stunned disbelief. Cameras tracked her exit as producers scrambled behind the scenes, trying to decide whether to cut to commercial. Jenna remained seated, her face unreadable but her jaw clenched tight. After a long, heavy pause, she turned back to the camera. "We'll be right back," she said softly. The screen faded to black, but the damage, and the moment, was already etched into live television history. Your company isn't perfect, and that there might be room for improvement in how you treat the people who work for you. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Joanna looked around the studio, at the cameras, at the audience, at the hosts who had just publicly questioned everything she had built. When she spoke again, her voice was calm, but there was something final about it. "You want me to acknowledge that my company isn't perfect?" Joanna said, her tone carrying a dangerous edge. "Vague allegations," she added. Jenna crossed her arms. "They're not vague, Joanna. We have people willing to go on record. We have documentation. We have a pattern of complaints that suggests systematic problems." "A pattern based on what?" Joanna shot back. 5 complaints over 10 years among 500 employees? Because context matters, Jenna. Numbers matter. Facts matter. The co-host tried to intervene. "Maybe we could schedule a follow-up interview where you have all that information available. What I'm saying is that if you want a serious conversation about workplace issues, then let's have one." "Making accusations," Jenna insisted. "Is there a difference?" The audience was transfixed, some recording on their phones, others staring in shock. This was unlike anything anyone had seen on morning television. Jenna's voice rose. Joanna's face flushed red. "We've created jobs in a community that desperately needed them. We've turned Waco into a destination, brought tourism dollars, supported local businesses. Just because you've been successful doesn't mean everyone who contributed has been fairly compensated." Joanna stared at her, her voice ice cold. "This isn't about workplace safety or overtime pay. You're using my business, my family's reputation to make some broader point about capitalism and worker rights." "This is about accountability," Jenna fired back. "When you build a brand around family values, people have a right to know whether you live up to those values." "And what gives you the right to be the judge of that?" Joanna demanded. "What expertise do you have in running a construction business, in managing hundreds of employees?" The co-host looked desperately at the cameras. Joanna was done with diplomatic answers. "What I want viewers to know is that we treat our people like family. We've built something special in Waco that has transformed lives and communities. And when someone tries to tear that down with gotcha journalism, it says more about them than us." "Nobody's trying to tear anything down," Jenna said. "We're trying to hold you accountable for your impact on real people's lives. My impact," Joanna's voice was getting louder, "has been providing jobs, revitalizing downtown, showing people that small towns matter. And you want to reduce that to a few disgruntled employees? Those employees are human beings with families to feed," Jenna shot back. "And they are," Joanna replied firmly. "But apparently, unless we're perfect in every interaction, we're somehow failing our community." The tension reached a breaking point. Jenna leaned forward aggressively. "I think you're not used to being challenged. Well, this is what real journalism looks like." Joanna went completely still. The studio was dead silent except for the hum of cameras. Real journalism would have involved reaching out weeks ago, asking for our side, giving us time to prepare responses. This isn't journalism. This is exploitation. You're exploiting these workers' concerns for drama, exploiting my reputation for ratings." Jenna was visibly angry. We have a responsibility to ask tough questions of public figures who profit from their image. How I respond? Joanna stood, her movement decisive, walking toward the edge of the set. "I'm done. I came here to talk about design and inspiration. Instead, I walked into a setup designed to damage my reputation." "Joanna, wait!" the co-host called out. "No," she said without turning around. "This isn't journalism, it's just cruel." Jenna stood up. "Running away doesn't make these concerns disappear. And ambushing people on television doesn't make you a journalist, Jenna. It just makes you someone willing to use other people's pain for your own gain." With that, she walked off the set, leaving behind stunned silence and the most dramatic exit in morning television history. So, what do you think? Was Joanna right to walk off when she felt ambushed? Subscribe now and let me know in the comments what you would have done in Joanna's situation.